Hello, my name is Nick Newton, and I'm the Chief of Police for the Oakdale Police Department. We are creating this video in collaboration with the Minnesota Department of Corrections to inform our community about a Level 3 predatory offender moving into our city. We are reporting this information to you as we want to protect our community by disclosing information about this offender. We recognize that when a Level 3 offender moves into our community, it can create feelings of fear and angst. The safety of our community is the highest priority. While we embrace and seek to protect the constitutional rights of all, make no doubt about it that your police officers are aware of this individual moving into the city, and we will continue proactively policing to make our community as safe as possible. We have brought in a subject matter expert to assist with this notification. Brad Vandervet from the Department of Corrections will provide useful information about predatory offenders and share information pertaining to this individual. Brad is considered an authority on predatory offenders, and he helps cities and counties throughout the state of Minnesota with community notifications. Before I turn this over, take note that there will be contact information for the Department of Corrections and the Oakdale Police Department following this presentation. Should you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brad Vandervet, and I am with the Minnesota Department of Corrections in the Risk Assessment and Community Notification Unit. In Minnesota, the registry, originally known as the Sex Offender Registry, came online in the early 90s and was built on the knowledge and understanding that if we could bring all of our data together that was previously stored within various law enforcement agencies' file systems, all into one central location with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, we could expedite those investigations when and if the need arose. And so the registry was born out of that need and necessity. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is the primary resource for this information, and the information they collect and retain is private by law and accessible to law enforcement and corrections only for the purposes of managing this unique population. When you think about the registry, I want to have in your mind an analogy of a funnel. And I want you to think at the largest end of that funnel are those offenses of a sexual nature that occur. And from what we know from our data and research is that the majority of those offenses that occur do not get reported at all to law enforcement, and our funnel begins to narrow instantly. Of those that do get reported to law enforcement, only a portion of those will go on to receive formal charges by the county attorney's office, and we narrow again. And by those that go through the judicial process after they've been formally charged, only a portion of that group may receive convictions for those charged crimes, and we narrow again. And of those that do get convicted, only a portion of that group will go on to enter prison, where they are assessed and assigned a risk level. So by the time we get to the numbers before you here, know that we are well down that funnel to about at least 2/3, if not more, down the neck of that funnel, where we can say at the time of this recording, we had approximately 19,028 registrants within the state of Minnesota. That would be all of them. And at the moment of the snapshot I took, you can see how those numbers break down in and around regions near you. The larger number to the left represents those subject to the registry. That is all registered individuals from no risk level assigned through levels 1, 2, and 3. That smaller number to the right represents those registered individuals that are subject to broad public notification. And the takeaway here as you look through these numbers is that while we get to know about those subject to broad public notification, we understand by looking here that broader awareness is just so very critical. We don't want you focusing on just any one individual, because we know that those who have come known to the system, come through the system, and received those resources are frequenting other communities than where they live primarily. The Community Notification Act came online a number of years after the registry and is built on the knowledge and understanding that a well-informed community is, in fact, a safer community, and is separate from the registry, as you've come to understand. In order for community notification to apply, a registrant must be an adult, and in Minnesota, we register children as young as age 10. So they must be an adult, and they must have crossed the threshold of prison. For those with stayed or probationary sentences, they are designated no level assigned. This does not imply that they do not have risk factors. It simply means that we have not assessed or assigned that risk to them unless or until they cross that threshold of prison. Any prison will do within the state of Minnesota, throughout the nation, to include U.S. territories, federal prisons, military prisons, and we also include those civilly committed persons for sex offending conduct and behavior. For level 3 designees, the law enforcement agency in the jurisdiction where that registrant resides primarily is able to provide broad public notification. And that notification can come in a variety of formats and styles. The one main thing that has to occur is that law enforcement will authorize the Department of Corrections to place that registrant onto the public registrant search site. This site's often confused as being the registry itself, but as you've seen, it is not. The registry, remembering, is only for law enforcement purposes. The public registrant search site applies to those subject to this level of notification, those level 3 designees or those being discharged from the Minnesota Sex Offender Program. This is Norberto Neira. First, I want to speak to photographs. Photographs are updated on average of annually, or if the subject were to significantly modify or change their appearance. If you were to see or observe a registrant subject to broad notification and note that they had modified or changed their appearance in a significant way, please do let local law enforcement or corrections know if they're involved. And they will attain updated photographs and get them onto the registry, where I will then attain them and get them onto that public registrant search tool, so that you will always have an accurate photograph of the individual for as long as they are subject to this level of information notification. These are Mr. Neira's vitals. He's currently 36 years of age and resides at the 7800 block of Stillwater Boulevard North here in Oakdale. I want to take a moment to explain the use of proximal addresses. The state utilizes a proximal address in order to mitigate risk from vigilantism. For those that may not be within the Oakdale community who are out engaging in their own violent behavior and conduct in an effort to right the wrong of sexual harm, we know that vigilantism like that does nothing to mitigate risk, and it does nothing to restore a victim or make them whole. And it only serves to disrupt the very things we're trying to do here within our communities. So this is why we utilize a proximal address. Law enforcement has the exact address of where all registrants live, where they may frequent secondary addresses, where they work, and schools they attend, and so on. So law enforcement and corrections, if they're involved, will always know specific information about these individuals. This is Mr. Neira's registrable offense history. This is not an exhaustive criminal history. We have some resources that will be made available to you if you're interested in learning about full criminal histories and how to search those. But because notification focuses on registrable conduct and behavior, we focus our notification information on that data as well. In 2005, Mr. Neira came onto the registry following a conviction for criminal sexual conduct in the first degree out of Ramsey County. This conviction was juvenile in nature. Mr. Neira at the time was a child, age 16. The victim was a known female, 12 years of age. Mr. Neira had formulated a relationship with the victim and used that trust that he'd built to have her accompany him outside of a youth center where he engaged in his sexual harm. For this crime, he was initially granted extended juvenile jurisdiction, or EJJ. He was allowed the benefit of the juvenile justice system. However, in time, the court grew weary of Mr. Neira's compliance with their rules, their technical expectations of his time on their supervision, and they revoked that EJJ, that extended juvenile jurisdiction, and implemented an adult sentence at the time he was over the age of 18. And so CSC 1, or criminal sexual conduct first degree, carries with it for him a 144-month commit to the Commissioner of Corrections or prison time, and a 5-year conditional release periods, 2/3 of which are served in the institution, 1/3 by law is served in the community on supervised release. In 2017, Mr. Neira was convicted for a non-felony level gross misdemeanor indecent exposure out of Hennepin County. He engaged in exhibitionistic behavior while in a public space in a shopping area, and was observed by multiple staff within that space manipulating himself in public. And for that crime, he received the maximum amount of time available for a gross misdemeanor, which is a year, and placed under supervision with the court for 2 years. And in 2023, Mr. Neira was once again convicted of a gross misdemeanor level indecent exposure, this time out of Anoka County. Mr. Neira was found in the community in public, exposing himself by an adult female staff person who had left her place of employment and observed him in his vehicle and notified law enforcement of his presence and conduct. And for this crime, he also received the maximum gross misdemeanor sentence available, with 365 days stayed for 2 years and placed on to supervision. With gross misdemeanor files, that supervision is local in nature. So as it sits with Mr. Neira, his prison chronology breaks down as follows. In 2007, he entered prison again for that CSC first degree, that criminal sexual conduct first degree, and served that time while in prison. He was assessed and assigned by the risk assignment committee, the end of confinement review committee, a risk level of 3. And in 2017, as you saw from his history, he came back for being in violation of his release conditions for that gross misdemeanor indecent exposure in Hennepin County, and so was returned to the institution. And that sentence, that felony level CSC 1 sentence, expired in 2019. As it sits right now, Mr. Neira remains under local supervision for that Anoka County file, and that file is set to expire in October of 2025. However, because of his conduct and behavior, Mr. Neira is subject to the registry for life. This typical registration term is 10 years. However, as you see here, Mr. Neira will be subject to registration for life, and law enforcement will always know where he lives, where he works, what he drives, etc. And for as long as he retains that risk level of 3, you will know that information as well. Please look to further resources as you look to implement this information into your own unique family and broader community safety planning efforts. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to either the supervising agent that's working with Mr. Neira until October, or you can reach out to your local law enforcement. You can reach out to victim services, whether that's state level or local level victim services that are available to you, and you can reach to us at the Department of Corrections as well. Thank you.